Let's dive into the fascinating world of artificial intelligence and how we can use it with Java.
Welcome to the Foojay Podcast, all your news about OpenJDK.
About 1.5 years ago, ChatGPT was launched. The way we search for information and develop software has changed a lot since then, as the use of artificial intelligence suddenly became a lot easier. What can we expect in the near future and how can we program AI ourselves with Java? Let's find out with these guests.
Hi, I'm Lutske de Leeuw. I'm a software engineer, original Java programming, and now full stack and with love for machine learning. I work at Luminous, and I talk a lot about machine learning. So today we will continue about that.
Hi, I'm Lize. I'm a core collaborator of the LangChain4j Java framework. And also at work, I'm head of AI transition. So I do love Java and I do love everything AI. I'm very excited about what LLMs change in our programming behavior.
And I'm Frank Delporte, creator of the podcast for Foojay, a Java developer and technical writer, and very interested in artificial intelligence and what you can do with it. But I'm new to this, so I can only learn today from both of you. Thank you for joining. Lutske, we already talked shortly about your talk at JFall. You were in the podcast episode 34. And the topic of your presentation was machine learning, where to begin. So that's, I think, the perfect question for the start of this podcast. Where should I start if I'm interested in machine learning, AI? What can I do?
Yeah, before you start with programming, because people think, oh, AI is cool, machine learning is cool, I want to program it in Java or Python or whatever. But the data is the most important part, because most companies, they have a lot of data, but it's not information yet. It's just one big pile of pictures and streams of data, but it's not organized, it's not labeled. Most of the time, it's just rubbish. And if you do garbage in, it's garbage out. So, you need some experts to organize the data. And that's most of the time also a hard question, because when you have something for the hospital, those experts aren't such available as you would be. And if you have the data organized, you're probably weeks, months, or sometimes even years further. And then the company says, yeah, the money is gone, we don't have any budget anymore, so we're back. So it's very important to know, okay, how is my data? Where do I start from?
Yeah, I think that's a bit the thought that it's now become easier to use. But indeed, if you want to use it in a company related to the things that you're doing in the company, then gathering the information to be able to do machine learning is probably indeed a very big job that most people underestimate.
Yeah, it's so cool now with ChatGPT. You think, oh, I just do some prompting and then all the magic will happen. But there's still a lot of mathematics works in the background.
Should I look at artificial intelligence, machine learning from two different points? So either you use it in your company to know more about your data, and on the other hand, you can use ChatGPT, other stuff which already are trained on stuff, where you can ask questions which are for a much broader topic. Like we as coders can now ask, give me an example of code to achieve this. So that's already trained by others.
Yeah, there's typical too. Yeah, if you want to do it from the start with your own data and don't want to do it in the cloud because it's top secret or something, but you want to extract information from it. But yeah, today there is a lot like OpenAI and ChatGPT you can build stuff on, and also if you're making your own, it's always good to build on the existing one, because very smart people already thought about it and they train them out hours and hours with models. So it's not that they just made some rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
No, please use them. I also always say that if the first time trying it, please build the windows already provided for you. And now you see since last couple months that ChatGPT also said, okay, here is this now make it for your own company.
I have a question for you, Lutske. So I come from the other side where we most of the time use the model as a kind of an API and use it into our applications that really build on top. And then we have some strategies like fine-tuning to make the model know a bit more about what exactly we're doing, or few shots. I mean, that's for large language model specifically. You're coming from this raw training side to the question. And I was just wondering, can you use LLMs? Can you leverage that somehow to structure your data?
Yeah, I think you can do it to structure your data, but still you need some expert that know the data, so you can verify it's correct what they did. You always need a verifying person to see if the data is correct. But I think you can.
Definitely,
but I don't know how, to be honest.
I think you've seen in a presentation of you, Lize, that there are models available that can search in your SQL data and give you some guidelines on how you can search in them, get data from it or results from it, correct?
Yes, there's two things there. So LLMs are really very good at creating queries. So if you want to know something, they can really turn this in a query for you, and most of the time this will work. So when you would need to restructure data, given it's already in one database or maybe a set of databases with a different schema, LLMs could actually help structuring that all in the same format. The other thing you might be referring to are embedding stores, where you're gonna store the meaning of your text. It's a text for the moment, although you can also do it with the text description of images, for example. And you're gonna vectorize the meaning, so turn the meaning into a vector of numbers, store that in an embedding store, and then if you ask a question, you can also create a vector of your question, and you will get the pieces with the most similar meaning out of it. So that's like two ways LLMs can help you in like soft querying for meaning, or in hard querying because they can write real queries too. And I think, there's really a lot to be done in the future in structuring your data. Like, let AI prepare your data for AI.
Let the computer work for you. We all love that as a developer.
Yeah.
Okay, it was mentioned a few times, LangChain Foojay. Lize, you're part of this project.
Yes.
Is it the most amazing thing happening in AI for Java at this moment, or there more? What does LangChain Foojay do?
Of course it is. So LangChain Foojay is one of the existing Java frameworks or the emerging Java frameworks to let you interact with LLMs mainly, but also with other types of models. I mean, it's definitely at the moment the most popular one, which makes us very happy. And what it does is it makes it super simple for you to start chatting with an LLM, be it provided by, for example, OpenAI, like that would be GPT, you would talk to, or there's so many more providers out there. Then there is providers like Hugging Face, where you can train your own model and then provide it from there. And it's also super easy to integrate with Java. And you can also turn local models. So we have, for example, Olama, that lets you talk to a model that you're running locally on your computer. And then on top of that, so like calling a model got turned into a two-liner, basically, where you just you write 2 lines of code, you send in a string of text, and you get an answer from your LLM, which is amazing. But then it adds so much functionality on top, where you can create functions just by methods, just by describing them. It's called AI services. You say what they have to do. You say what type of data you want to come out of there. So you can really get plain old Java objects out of it, or lists or whatever. And then LangChain Foojay takes care under the hood of parsing all the things correctly. And so it's really this mix between real Java programming with some LLMs in the background doing work for you.
I saw you talk at Devox, I think in October it was last year.
Yeah.
And in 1 hour you gave 12 examples, which was pretty impressive.
You counted them.
I looked at the sources of them. The last one where you searched through a document, a text document, give me a summary of this. I used it to create an example for myself. I talked about at FOSDEM, searching through documentation, existing documentation, because that's, as a docs writer, that's one of the holy grails. Can we have a chat that only answers with information of my company, of my product. There are some pitfalls to solve yet. You can
Oh,
still
yes, there are.
you can still trick it to give you the wrong answers. But you're right. So a two-liner, you said, my example is a bit longer, but indeed, that's what I love about Java. Thanks to all these amazing libraries, you can do a lot of stuff with very minimal code. And um, we record this on the 15th of March. Yesterday, I saw a tweet from Marcus Helberg from Vaden.
Mm.
He created a chatbot with a web user interface in Spring Boot, interacting with the chatbot in 26 lines of code. Isn't that amazing? What we
It's
can
nice,
do?
right?
Yeah. But he uses Spring Boot and Spring AI. Is it using LangChain for
Okay.
J, or is it another implementation that Spring Boot
It's
provides?
it's another library or framework from Spring Boot.
Mm.
But I know Marcus, he also has a talk where he compares, I think, Microsoft Semantic Kernel, LangChain for J, and then Spring AI to build the same
Mhm.
application. I wonder if we can do it in 26 line with LangChain for J, but I bet we can.
I bet you can, yes. So as a developer, a lot has changed. I read a few times developers will not lose their job because of these tools. They will lose their job because they don't use them, because they are not using the new ways of programming. Is that a bit your feeling?
Yeah, I think that's true because a lot of people say, "Oh no, AI is going to take my job," and I don't believe that because they take the AI part, getting the recursive stuff and the easy stuff, and you probably when you're doing it now, you're like, "I need to do this again, and why?" And there's more. Yeah, you now have more creativity in your work because all that's left, you have to think about, okay, how do I do the solution? And you can ask the AI for examples and stuff, but still, it's not optimized. And even if they put out some garbage, you still have to make something working out of it. So I think your job is getting interesting, yeah, more interesting. And if it's not, you're not using those tools, then you're doing the same old boring job. Even that programming isn't boring, but you get what I mean.
Mhm.
Yeah, I actually looked a bit closer into this question because I had a keynote to give at JFocus, so I wanted to make sure I know all about it. And then, so I also think it will speed us up. But at the other hand, AI is creating so many new possibilities of what we can automate in society. So I think at the moment, preparing the infrastructure for developers to use AI to help us and really speed up the work, that's a big one. So we have Java project, Python projects. There's so many people at the moment working to make that possible. So there's also a lot of job openings in those domains. And then what becomes possible afterwards of type of applications we can program, we can just take over, kind of take over so much more of society, or let's say free them from the work. And that all still also needs to be programmed. And when you look at the job market at the moment in the tech sector, so there's these terrible layoffs, and they're very often done to say, like, we want to align our workforce with our strategic goals. And it very often includes laying off the parts of the company that can be automated, or, I mean, yeah, all the text to speech and voice recognition, AI just took the field over overnight. So, and then, but they are also hiring a lot, and they're hiring a lot along the lines of AI application engineers, ML engineers. So we actually see a skill shift, and the best way to stay future proof is to actually join this movement and see how you can leverage AI, LLMs, machine learning for your future career. And then at the other hand, I still think also, like we've seen with all informatization of services, there are still companies out there doing their work on pen and paper. They are still doing it in Excel. There's others that are really on the front line with AI and state of the art. And I think this will also stay for developer jobs.
Mm-hmm. For me, when I do development, I use the AI and the chat to give me an example of how could I do this. I think that's a nice approach of how you can use these tools to be inspired.
Yeah, that's certainly true. But you also see it when the internet came, when I was in high school, there's just a shift from books from the internet, and then you have a whole base of more knowledge, but you still have to search for the correct knowledge. So that's still now. You have the AI that has lots of ideas, but you as a programmer still have to choose, okay, what I'm going to do with it, and is this correct, and is this something I can use?
At the beginning, you mentioned about data is needed for training. So
Yes.
we know that all these LSMs are trained by all the data which is available on the internet, being source code, being books. There are a lot of concerns about if I use a chat system in my code, how is my code getting back into this model? Should we be worried as companies, as developers, that our code leaks? I just saw a tweet passing by that some system is providing API keys from other users into its examples. So you mentioned Llama, that you can run it locally. Should we look at solutions that run locally only on our own system, or is it safe to use these web-based providers?
It really boils down to the terms of use of the provider. So, for example, if you use OpenAI, so the GPTs, via their API, then they do not collect your data. That's in their terms of use, but at the other hand, there's no warranty. Something similar happens when you use Bing Chat, or it changed now to Copilot, right? Microsoft's version of ChatGPT. The normal usage conditions say like, yeah, we become owner of your data, and then we can use it for entertainment purposes, things like that. So yeah, if you're a company working in a regulated environment, you definitely want to avoid using that. But they have an enterprise version where they have way better conditions, where they say we don't train, it's encrypted when it's sent to our model, it's never stored, Microsoft has no eyes on it. So it's really, if you're a company, it's legal's task to look through all these terms of use. And so there are options there. Either you use a software as a service provider like OpenAI, either you can run your model in a private cloud, and then you just trust your private cloud security for not having a data breach. For example, when your code is your IP, you would want to do that. Or you can run it locally, which is definitely a great option, but it's also costly and requires some IT knowledge to get it running. But when you run it locally, nothing is leaked.
Yeah, what you also can do is anonymize your data. So it's more like class A and variable B and all that stuff. So you can do it online and use all the sources and has less cost. But then you still need that extra step to take.
Lutske, so you're involved in projects where data gets labeled. Is that using local systems? What systems can you use for that?
Yeah, you can do the old school way, just to do it all hand by hand, but that takes very long time. And you have a couple systems can help you with it, and that do like 80% for you, and then you have to check, okay, is this what I expected it to be? So there are solutions for that.
We at work at some point also set up a system where you have a kind of moderator model. I mean, first the hard filter on things we know we definitely don't want to leave the company. Then like kind of moderator model locally to say like, okay, this user question or this piece of code contains really too much that we don't want to have leaked. So we send it to our local model, which is definitely less good. And then when it's safe, or like when we can easily anonymize it, then we can send it to, I mean, GPT-4 is at the moment really the best one if it's for complex questions. And so, we tried to build a system where like we made this cost balance. Also, every LLM check or every model check uses a bit of time. So you're definitely slowing down the process. Like the latency goes up if you have two checkers and an anonymizer in front. But at the other hand, which is nice, the technology is getting so much better, so this will get faster. And I don't think this latency problem will still be a big issue in, say, a year from here.
It also costs money. So if you're calling the OpenAI API, each request costs you a bit of money. Do you think moving this to a local system could be a lot cheaper? Because you still need hardware to run it on. Is it something worth the effort, or is it for now, use what is provided and follow the evolutions?
For testing, definitely you can go with some provider because it's extremely cheap. Should look the numbers up again, but I think you can get about 10 pages for $1 if it's not 1 cent. I would have to check that, but it's really cheap compared to the cost of a server. But then if you're using it intensively, your system, it can definitely be worth investing in local hardware. I mean, the problem with local hardware is that it's limited in duration of support. So it's going to last somewhere between 2 and 5 years. If you're hardly using it, you better pay per token, basically, with an online provider. If you're going to use it very intensely, it can turn out much cheaper. Like the electricity costs are really quite limited. And then you're local. But also the local models at this moment are not on the level, so they're open source models, right? And they're not at the level where like a Claude or a GPT-4 is today. So it also, again, depends on what you need for your use case.
If we look at LangChain 4J, Lize, so you're really involved in the development there. I see that there are a lot of releases or at least commits in the project. What can we expect from this project in the near future? What can you share?
Oh yeah, I can share. I mean, I can share what we want to do, but of course we're not that many people and we don't have that much time. So it's not a promise that it will come. But we are looking at the moment in making this advanced RAG better. So advanced RAG is what you told, where you go find your documents with this embedding store via meaning. That's what we call RAG. It's retrieval augmented generation. It's just a hard word to say chat with your documents or with your data. Advanced RAG allows you to, for example, do query expansion. So at the moment, a user asks, for example, we're talking about Frank Delporte. And at some point in the discussion, we at some point we ask how old is he? Like the easy RAG will just embed how old is he, and it will find in whatever bio or that you uploaded there. It will not know that it's about you. So query expansion actually lets an extra large language model bundle the whole discussion from before to make it the best part of meaning that would fit the answer. And then we have query routing, which actually decides by itself, should I go query a database the hard deterministic way, or should I find the semantically similar meaning parts in my documents? And then we have re-ranking at the end, which says like, okay, now actually what happens with this retrieval augmented generation is that at the moment you do the real call to the LLM for the answer, you say, this was my question, and here are all pieces of information we found that could actually guide your answer, and now try to make a good answer. And like, as you said, like it's not up to, like the easy version is not great at the moment. It finds, for some use cases it's great, and for others it just doesn't find it or find very wrong things. So then we would have a re-ranking step that will have an extra look, like which of these are now actually relevant, and only keep these. And then it gets really much better. So this advanced RAG is it's in constant evolution. It's getting better like every week. What else do we have? We're looking into multimodality. So we have now image models. We can input and output images already with, for example, Gemini, Imagen, DALL-E. They're already supported. Then, of course, we will be looking also in voice, speech, these things, see what we can add when we have time. We're looking into state machines that I find excellent, because if you want an LLM to run some complex task, it's usually gonna fail because it can handle complexity up to a certain point. But if we already know, like, oh, maybe first we have an input phase where we need to ask our user for data, then we have to check it with something else, then based on this, we have to go back to the user, or we have to launch another process. This whole workflow, that's actually intelligence we have beforehand, and we only need the LLM to then really ask this information. And so we're working on this state graph concept where you make a state machines with LLMs inside that will transition to other LLMs, so to say. I think, and observability, yes. We are looking into observability, which is really important. So you could also plug in other tools to actually look what's going on under the hood there. Yeah, so that we know which tools the model has been calling, which other calls it has been making, what it has been using as input, what it found out from your documents, which makes it, of course, way more suited for enterprise applications. So there's this observability, then there's some framework for optimization that we want to put in place, because your first query, like your first prompt that you send in, may not give the desired result, and then you actually want to do a couple of iterations to see if you can get it better. We want to bring in place that your LLM can help you make it better, so to make your own query better. And then we're also looking into unit tests and a test framework, which is not that easy, right? Because you send in text, you get out text, and it's not going to be the same twice because it has some randomness in there. So we're looking into like unit tests where you ask what's the capital of Germany, and then we just check that Berlin is part of the answer, because we can't check the whole answer. We're thinking, and then we can of course let an LLM check if the answer that came out of the unit test is valid. So it becomes very meta, but it's important features for having more robust applications.
And that's all inside that one project. So how is this all Java code, or are these models using other models? This sounds so complex. How do you do this?
It sounds complex, but it's not that complex. It's like these iterative functions that call themselves. It works also for LLMs. So most of the LLMs provide some form of API, which we call from Java. And that's the basic blocks behind it in the end. And there's a lot of parsing going on, like, clean up your input, parse the output, which sometimes comes in JSON, for example, and then we can parse it to POJOs. So that's how it's happening under the hood.
All happening for free as an open source project. I think there are quite a few contributors. How do you do this? You have a job?
I must admit, I hardly get to write code at the moment since I'm doing the presenting. So I have like 2 to 4 presentations a month. I'm just preparing new talks. I try to help in the documentation and try to contribute the examples. And for the rest, it's actually Dimitro Liobarski, the founder of LangChain4j, and he's also the main contributor. And he works day and night. It's amazing. So I have these emails arriving in my inbox for all the pull requests and all the commits, and so I see what's going on. It is crazy. I hope at some point, he gets more help, we get more help, so we can have a normal life again. But it's now that it has to happen, so we do it now.
But I have been a little contributor. I added a little Java Fix example, because that's also great on LangChain4j. You have a separate repository with examples. So these that I mentioned from your DevOps talk are in there. And now my little Java Fix example is there.
Thank you very much. Hey, what's coming? It's even nicer. I should do this, like I said I would do it this weekend, but it didn't happen. It's going to come very soon. We will make a community examples repository, because for now the examples repository you have is very structured, very minimal. So people, we don't allow people to put huge examples there to keep the overview. But we're going to make this community examples repo where everybody can really contribute their either completely crazy projects or their enterprise projects if they want, for everybody to see what can actually be built, because our examples are now pretty low level, but you can do amazing things. And we want to see what the community's been making. And we want to also allow everybody to, if they want to give a demo somewhere, try out the other people's examples.
What I learned from my experiments, I was searching in our own docs that I write, and the chat could not answer the difference between two of our products. So I actually discovered via chatting with my own docs that they were not complete. And I think it was an unexpected use case, but it's actually a very good one. I know a bit of the answers that people are asking about our products. So if I ask these same questions to a chat, can it find it in our documents? So that for me, that's one of the very nice use cases of searching through the docs. But yeah, we also have a lot of horror stories about. I think it's one of your presentations, Lise, that a car dealer has to sell a car for $1. I have a few
Yeah.
slides in my presentations with chat interfaces promoting another product from another supplier. So is chat good enough to put in place as an interaction between customer and company, or should we be very careful?
Yeah, we should definitely be very careful which models we're using, if they're good enough for the job, and then very much like the instructions have to be very, very specific and very extensive, because otherwise, indeed, you can trick these chat models in doing plenty of things. But there's other ways you can fine-tune your model. So then you give it a lot of examples of what you exactly want as an output, and it will behave like that, which also mitigates what it could output that you don't want. There is a few shots that's really nice. So you don't need to fine tune your model, because fine tuning is costly in terms of hardware and time. If you use few shots, you just give a couple of examples along and you pretend this was the rest of the conversation. So you said like, the user said this, you answered this, then the user said this, you answered this other thing, and it will really behave like the examples you give it. And then you can really also trim it down to certain answer formats. But yes, you have to be really careful. Another thing is to limit your input window, and to tell your model also to stop interacting if ever the conversation goes in this or that direction. And limit this input window, because people will use your chatbot as a free ChatGPT sometimes. It's like, oh, well, this can answer everything. Well, I'm going to use this. And then, you have high bills and no benefit of it at all. It's to be careful about, yes.
Yeah, but doesn't always want to follow the rules, because I asked it to only answer Java questions, but still was answering Python questions. So I think my rules were not strict enough.
It's called prompt optimization, where you try your original prompt and then it doesn't want. It's particularly bad at hearing what it should not do. So when you say do not answer from Python, it will, depending on how smart your model is, it will either do it if you're lucky, or just ignore it, or even put Python in there because, it says Python. So, or the nicest thing is when it says like, yeah, I'm not allowed to answer about Python. And you're like, I wanted a professional chatbot here.
I think a lot of companies are just researching what they can do with AI now. It's the hype, and everyone wants to be within this industry and do something with it. But I think for a lot of companies, it's really not clear how they can use their data to find more information in it and how they can actually do something with it. I think that's, for a lot of companies, it's a buzzword, but it's not clear how they can do something with it.
Everyone wants to get on the hype train and they don't even know where to start. So it's the good old software example, like question as a customer 10 times or 100 times, why do you want this? What solution do you want from this? And then most of the times you get whole other solutions to provide them. So it's just take any book from 1980 and it's still the same. Like, just why, and why. And yes, you can do it with machine learning. And yes, you can do it with AI. And everybody loves to do that. But it's just the same, but in a different code.
Will we see the same happening as with blockchain? Everyone wanted to be on the blockchain, and now so many years later, I don't see a lot of real good use cases of it. I think AI is different.
Yeah, me too. I think blockchain was just a short hype. And then it was like, this is not the solution. And now there's still a lot that's not AI is the solution or machine learning. But a lot can provide a little bit of optimization or most of the time speed with it. So I think it's gonna be just one other solutions to do it.
there's also a lot of companies that want to jump on the hype, not only because it's the hype, but because they think they might be missing out on serious efficiency gains, which is also true. And you need somebody that knows what's possible, what the implementation costs are, how long this goes, and then also knows your company processes very well, and then see what makes sense to do. So like a typical one, at least in traditional companies, is people use 20% of their time on average searching for things. So that there's been this study done that's 1 day per week they're just searching, and that's where LLMs and AI can really help. Also joining all the parts of your data lake, so all these spread data you have in your company, AI can actually bridge that, and you can then search in all at the same time, and it really figures out the relevant parts if it's set up in a good way, if it's good enough. So there you have huge efficiency gains. And then there's a lot of repetitive work that can be automated, especially when it's like communication and text writing and marketing. It's really helpful there. And then there's things like Microsoft Copilot, the one that interacts with your documents and your emails. And I mean, I'm sure that can save you a lot of time. But then again, you have to look, do I work in a regulated environment?
Mm-hmm.
Are these terms of use good enough for what we have? But it makes sense for companies. It's really a transition to make, to see which tools need to be brought in place for their setup and their processes, and it makes sense to get somebody on board that knows what can be done with AI, talk to the people that know the process of the company, and then make kind of blueprint.
Mm-hmm. One similarity I see with blockchain is the energy consumption. So there is a lot of energy needed to train models, then to call these APIs. Lize, you talked in one of your talks, you mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals. Will AI help us to create a better world?
I believe so, yes. So sustainable and development. So the Sustainable Development Goals are those from the United Nations, and yes, climate is one of them, but reducing poverty and equal access to humane work, things like that are all in there, no hunger. So they were not talking literally about the energy consumption of developers when they wrote those down. Yes, so the energy consumption to train models is very high. I hope it will be going down. So there's so much engineers on this on this puzzle. I think it's gonna be like Moore's law again. Like, so I'm from the electronics side, where the size of your chip would just go down about every 2 years with half the size, and it's pretty sure it's going to be similar for AI and the models and the GPUs. So we already have LPUs pretty recently coming out with Grok. Not the Elon Musk one, the other one. So that's language processing units, and they are, I think, about 4 times faster when it's for running a large language model, for example. And this trend is going to continue. So this latency is going to go down, the cost is going to go down. Ideally, then the electricity consumption would go down. But as we've seen with other things like bandwidth in antennas, when the bandwidth would go up for the same electricity cost, people would just start streaming their cat videos in HD, right? Yeah, so it's going to be the same with LLMs, I'm afraid.
Yeah, we're going to use it more. You mentioned the models getting better. We are in a Java podcast. Is Java also getting better for machine learning, AI, handling stuff, training models, doing all these kind of things?
So yes, they're totally doing efforts in that direction. The biggest one is Project Panama. It allows you to have more direct access to native functions, to your native data, your memory. So it breaks down a couple of hurdles there. I just read that they will have in Project Tornado also GPU garbage collection. I mean, it's not there yet, but they're definitely working on it, because they also see, of course, that this is a direction that at least a part of the Java programming language will evolve in. So that is very cool. We're not leveraging it at the moment in our library, but I hope, like, at some point we will also find the time to look more into this machine learning and training part and at things there, or maybe some other library pops up making use of that.
Mm-hmm. We briefly talked also about this in the Java podcast, Foojay podcast about Java 22. We have this 6-month release cycle. So I guess with LangChain4j and other libraries, you don't jump immediately to the latest version because then you exclude a lot of other applications or developers. But yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on because there are a lot of changes there. I think Sumatra also is something which is aiming at improving all these things.
What we do in LangChain4j to solve this, we are still compatible with Java 8 because, sadly, a lot of enterprise applications still use this. And we want to support those too. But then we have certain parts of our library that only work on Java 11 and higher. So we can also jump on the latest trends, but then you can't use these, of course, in the Java 8 applications.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we will for sure be looking into this.
You mentioned, Lize, that you can also use TornadoVM and they are evolving into this direction. So TornadoVM is a way to transfer your Java code to the GPU. Will we see other evolutions there and improvements?
For the GPU evolution, if you use like deep learning models and very complex, you still need it. But for small data sets and stuff, the GPU isn't needed anymore. It's going so fast that you don't have to use it because it's very small memory bounds. But if you have those complex things or want to do real time very fast, you still need GPU because that's optimized for it.
So the GPU is more there to train your model. That's when you use these kind of devices.
Yeah, but not only for training, because if you're training a small model, you don't need literally a GPU. But if you have complex or big things, then it's very handy to use.
It's also important for the bigger models when you want to run them. So not only train them, but use them. Some of them are 60 gigabyte big, and then you want to be really close with your GPU to your processors, so that is actually you get your answer in a decent time frame.
There's a lot of clouds. You can use the biggest one that's out there, but yeah, that will cost you also. So yeah, that's the choices you have to make. Do I want to spend a lot of money and be there like within not even milliseconds, but even faster, or do I have the time because it's a complex question and it's okay to wait for it?
What's also interesting is that Apple, for example, now on their newest MacBooks, they have a thing called unified memory that serves both as your normal RAM and your GPU. And so they just make sure it's really close to both your normal processors and to your graphical processors. And I expect all hardware will evolve in that direction.
And Java will also evolve in that direction with all these new projects going on and being able to support that. So a lot of things to evolve, to keep an eye on and see how they all evolve.
A lot of work for developers too.
That's a cool future, right?
So that brings us back to the question: will we lose our job? No, but it will change.
I don't think so. Yes, that I do think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it will definitely change. Okay. I will add to the show notes link to all the presentations we mentioned, both by you, Lutske, and by Lize. A lot that people can still watch after this podcast. Of course, there's the LangChain4j project to take a look at. Spring Boot also has its AI project. A lot of examples, and because this is such a hot topic, if you also keep an eye on social media, you will definitely see examples of all the different libraries being used. Thank you for your time, both. Have fun doing all these experiments and working on all these amazing projects and giving presentations and talking about what's possible. Thank you also very much to the listeners of this podcast. Keep an eye on Foojay for future articles and podcasts about development and everything related to the Java world. Thanks a lot.
Give me a Foo, give me a J, give me the friends of OpenJDK.